A splendid day, ladies and gentlemen, to all the administrators, heads of the different agencies. Welcome to our session today. And I'll be tackling building collaborative and inclusive working relationship. And this is Reynaldo B. Carnace at your humble service. All right. So before we start, I'd like to have a little survey about, as administrator or head of office, how do you assess the collaboration and inclusion of the people in your work area? So in a scale of 1 to 10, what is your rating, right? Kindly chat in the chat box. What is your rating in a scale of 1 to 10? 10 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. Come on, keep it coming. All right. Thank you so much for all your responses, for your ratings, for being honest about your ratings. So could be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so kindly assess yourself with the following rating scheme. No? If your rating is 9 to 10, then you are excellent in your leadership, no? In terms of collaboration and inclusion consideration. All right, and if it's 7 to 8, that is very good. And if it's 5 to 6, it's good. If it's 3 to 4, that's fair. And if it's 1 to 2, that's already very poor, no? So maybe you have to assess yourself, what are you going to do to improve your rating. If it is 5 or 6, that's good, but it can be better if it's very good or excellent. All right, thank you. And now we proceed. We say that diversity and inclusion are about giving value to every human being, no matter our differences. So try to reflect on this quote. So how about this? How is it important to you? Is productivity more important than relationships? If what you want to achieve has failed, how do you deal with the employee, with the worker? Right. So at the end of the day, you ask yourself, what is really more important? Is it productivity or is it the relationship? Because this says that it's about giving value to every human being, no matter our differences. So it's more of understanding the capabilities of every person. So there is no need to compare what you can do, what other people can do in relation to other persons. So every person is unique. So what one can achieve may not be achieved by another person, or they have different time of achieving the same. All right. So in today's discussion, we have the following subtopics to cover. Number 1 is define collaboration and inclusion. Number 2 is the importance of collaborative and inclusive working relationship. Number 3 is stages in building collaboration. Number 4 is success, factors and challenges in collaboration and inclusion. Then I'd like to introduce this roadmap for developing relationships as you go the distance as manager or leader. And then lastly, we have some items on building collaborative and inclusive working relationships. So if you have any questions, if you have other concerns, you can write them in the chat box, and as much as possible, we try to entertain them. The moderator will facilitate later on in the forum. All right. Collaboration is a mutually beneficial and well-defined relationship that involves people from different organizations, agencies, sectors, or the community joining together to achieve a common goal. So in here, we're talking about a macro perspective of collaboration from your specific agency, then to another agency or to other agencies, right? But there can also be collaboration within an office itself from uh, sub offices, no? So, for example, if it's in administration and there is finance, so and within administration there is a supply office, for example, there is HR, there is record management, and so on and so forth. So, all these offices, is there collaboration? Try to ask yourself if there is a collaboration in the specific offices, small offices in your main office. Right, so that's the micro and macro perspective of collaboration. That goal could not be achieved as efficiently or at all by any one person, organization, or sector. The result is a highly shared endeavor in which members eventually commit themselves as much to the common goal as to the interests of the respective organization. So I recall being the chief administrative officer in a university. So under my office, there are different offices like the management information system, supply office management, records management office, HRMO, for example. No? So then there is also the Bids and Awards Committee working with us, the Planning and Engineering Team Office working with us. We have the physical facilities, plant and facilities also working with the office. So during the ISO certification, it was very important for us to collaborate because there were certain processes that these offices would work together or collaborate, you know, with the respective functions. It also includes the security and then the maintenance. All right. So can you imagine if these offices do not collaborate? So what's going to happen? So there should be really failure in the functions and processes if these offices do not coordinate, do not cooperate. So like also in a university, for example, so we have the office of the president. So and then there are four vice presidents collaborating. So we have academic services, we have research and extension, for example, and then we have student services office, and then we have administration and finance. So can you imagine if there is no collaboration within and among the different offices? So certainly the efforts would be futile. So they would not really be functioning as an entire organization if there is problem with collaboration, right? All right, so we define diversity as difference such as race, gender, work and educational background, sexual orientation, learning styles, interpersonal traits, personal beliefs, age, geography, lifestyles, and physical attributes. So, while going through the definition of diversity, can you please go back to your office if you notice all of these differences among the employees? And how do you deal with them? Is there such a program of the office that would look into the diversity of the employees? And what do you do? How to handle, especially on sexual orientation, for example? Because, for example, if one belongs to an LGBT community and many of the people in the office may be against that. So how do you handle it? How do you educate the people about that? And then employees also may have different learning styles or interpersonal traits or personal beliefs. So how do you handle that? So these are things that the office should consider, should look into. What are you going to do with such diversity of employees that you have? Not to mention the age, of course, because when we say golden people, so they act differently with millennial people and with the baby boomers or the generation Y and Z. All right, so all these people work, react differently on certain aspects, no? Including lifestyles and physical attributes. So the bottom line here is, how do we deal with this diversity of people working within our environment? So do we have program for them? Yes, there is what we call gender awareness, gender sensitivity program. So is this in place? Are we really doing something about this? So, but it's only one program. There is also what we call value formation program. Do we have an in-place value formation program in our office? All right. So moving on, when we speak also of inclusion, are we creating an environment where everyone feels appreciated, valued, and welcomed? So is everyone being valued in the office, in your community? So if someone is a member of the PWD group, so what do you do? If someone achieves something, for example, is there a mechanism to appreciate it, the person? Do we have praise, reward system? Do we have a toast for excellence regularly so that we would recognize everyone in the office working his or her best? So, okay, so these are some questions that you can look into. What can be done to improve diversity and inclusion? Okay, so let me walk you through on the diversity and inclusion strategic framework. So maybe you are aware of this, and maybe some of you are already using this strategic framework. No? So we have the following consideration. It depends on the function of your office per se. No? So, but very important here is the people themselves who are working in the office, and then what is the workplace that we have created, no? What is the environment that we have, and then how are we moving out to the marketplace, to our clients, no? So when we speak of people, we talk about the employee resource groups, what kind of individuals we have. So when we hire people, for example, we give the basic qualification standards, and then as they go through the hiring process, we try to select who among of these people would be a part of the culture of our office, what it takes for them to be a part of us, and we are very selective. I remember when we have, for example, 5 items available, you know what, how many applicants do we have? About 150 or even more, and they're really very highly qualified. Like, even if we're only looking for administrative assistant or administrative aid, we have graduates of law, engineering graduates, education passer, but they're not employed. It's so sad that they are not employed for about 5 years already or more, and here they come applying for a job, and we are also sorry because there are only 5 items available, and the selection process is very highly competitive. Right, so what is the type of resource groups that we have? So do we have a record of that in the HRMO? So we will know what are the capabilities and strengths of our employees, no? And then what professional development or professional sharing we provide to our employees in the course of their stay in our office. So do we have mentoring program? Do we have that HRDP program? Yeah, this is required by Civil Service Commission, that we should have a professional development program or learning development program in our office. So every office should have this, so that we would know what are we going to provide, what skills are needed to be developed to our employees. So there should be regular assessment and mentoring programs, so that we would also know who among them we're going to retain. For example, if they are on a 6-month probationary period, for example, or if they are on a job order or contract of service, because usually we also get from those people working on JO and COS, for example, if we have an open item or available item, so we also ask them to apply for a plantilla position. So who among them are we going to retain? So we have to take care of our people by looking into this, no? So the existing capabilities, and then what else can we do as an office to mentor them? So, and in the workplace, yes, as I said, so we provide training to our employees so that they would improve their productivity because they have developed also their skills. And then there should be workforce planning. So during this pandemic time, for example, so we have what's this, work plan, no, scheme. So maybe 3 days in the office, and then 2 days work from home, or you can have 4 days in the office, or 1 day work from home, or it can be reversed. What is important is even if they are working from home, they are productive, because there are some people when they say work from home, they feel that it's a privilege and it's really a vacation. All right, so that's very important that we know that we are being paid by the government for staying at home, but we make sure that we work from home, we entertain questions from our clients, and we comply the requirements being asked for. So it's as if like really devoting your 8-hour work while at home. All right. So there should be an executive diversity council in the office, like when I was in Philippine Science High School, for example, so we had a management council, and in the university we have an executive committee also, so which composes the specific heads, of the different departments, so that we could plan out things well. Then we also look into the Diversity Advisory Council. So diversity means, yes, we said representative from different offices or different sectors of the society. All right. So do we have this perspective in our workplace? Because if we do, then we aim for the development of our workplace. So when we speak about the marketplace, so we make sure that we have a branding of our office. How do we do that? So we have, for example, website or web page. We have FB page, for example, and the structure also of our building. There is a brand, even the color. There is a theme, no, very thematic, and we would know that that is really the DPWH because the color is orange, or that is typically DepEd because the structure of the building is similar. All right. So, and we also look into the philanthropy, the corporate social responsibility, because that's also one way of promoting our office or agency. Even as a government institution, for example, we should have a corporate social responsibility. And then we have strategic partnerships with different offices, for example. And I remember when I was in Pisay as a director of the school, for example, we had partnerships, no? Like if we had exchange programs, for example, with American Field Service, so I would connect with different national government offices and the local government unit, because a portion of their stay, like if they stay for 1 year in the school, a portion of that would be dedicated to actual immersion in the school, like classroom observations or just doing activities in the school, for example. And then the rest of their stay, they would be going to the local government unit to do activities, and they're fielded, for example, in barangays, like sports program, waste management program, enhancement program of the students. and so on and so forth. And then in the respective offices, for example, if they're fielded in the DSWD, how to take care of children with special issues and concerns. So that is one, for example, and different other offices. So there is strategic partnerships of the different offices. So in fact, recently I had a contact with the American Field Service to connect with a local government unit, for example, in Palo. So because of the closure of classes of face-to-face instruction, so they can no longer bring students from abroad, no, to be fielded in a different school. So I guess it's good to have collaboration with the local government unit, because the local government unit per se has connection with the different offices. So it would be easier for the local government unit to connect with the different offices and also with the different families, because mostly in the international exchange program, so there is a homestay. So the parents would adopt the children coming over. So even without the school, then they can still be immersed in the different offices through the facilitation of the local government unit. Right? So that's a very good strategy at this time because of pandemic. That they can still observe virtual learning, because if they are adopted by respective families, then the kids are immersed into virtual learning, so they can actually join in the virtual classes of the children. So it would still be a holistic experience with our exchange students from abroad. Not much with those students fielded in other countries, because in other countries at this time they're already face-to-face instruction or classes. So in the Philippines, a bit we are still contemplating if we are going to do that, except for medical schools, of course. They're already allowed to have a face-to-face instruction. And then supplier diversity is also very important. Like in ISO, for example, it is required that there is an evaluation of suppliers in an office, so that we have diverse suppliers. Because by then, so we are also attracting different suppliers and different people to engage services with our office, right? So again, we have to look into the people, the workplace, and the marketplace. And we look into the retainment of our people, the development of our people and the workplace itself, and the attraction of our office, of our workplace to our marketplace. So as we proceed to our presentation, let's look into the two aspects of diversity and inclusion. So when we speak of diversity, we mean of who, the people who are involved, whom we consider in terms of diversity as mentioned earlier. And then when we speak of inclusion, we look into how are we going to consider them as part of the group. So because all these are aimed for collaborative and inclusive working relationship. So when we speak of diversity without inclusion, so it's really futile if there is no inclusion and diversity, because the effect is it decreases the collaboration of the people, of course. So because they are diverse individuals and we do not consider inclusion of other people in the group, then that decreases the collaboration. And when the collaboration decreases, of course, there's a tendency that there's also a reduction of productivity and the performance of the people. So therefore, there are now so many barriers, in terms of achievement of the vision, mission, goal of the agency. And when this is happening, it kills the innovative skills of the people. So therefore, diversity and inclusion go hand in hand. So one cannot survive without the other. You think so? So when we speak of inclusion also without diversity, the effect would be there is a reliance on spare of comfort, no? So they rely, someone would do it. Okay, reward status quo thinking, and then decreases disruption as well. All right. So as I said earlier, diversity and inclusion should go hand in hand for a collaborative and inclusive working relationship. So the end point would be transformative performance, right? So if there is diversity and inclusion, there is transformation in the performance of the people. Okay, so when we look into the employee engagement based on the schema I presented earlier, so the very important item there is people. So enterprise-wide learning events, no? So there is education and awareness among the people involved. Uh, Other example would be Heritage Month events, so where we allow culture and respect of our heritage. And then very important also is the consideration of community involvement, because in there we have leadership and ownership. And then uh, lastly is speed mentoring, because if there is mentoring of all the people in the agency, then we can assure that there is growth and development in the entire office, in the entire. So from people, we move now to workplace. If you're going to look at the ladder, what uh, comes to your mind? For me, when I look at the ladder and the descriptions, no, what came to my mind was the Bloom's taxonomy of learning. That from the first step, we have remember, no. Then after remembering, then there is understanding of what is being remembered. Then there is an application, an analysis, evaluation, and creation. So that is the Bloom's taxonomy of learning. So in comparison to this, the learning roadmap, so there is what we call an exclusive behavior, and the end point is the inclusive behavior. So maybe when one enters the agency, there is a tendency to be exclusive before you finally become inclusive with your dealing with the people within the workplace. All right, so how are you going to achieve that? Number one is there should be a level of awareness of the people you are working with. So you have to know the background, the orientation, the career path that the people are pursuing, the skills, the strengths, as well as the weaknesses of the people. Because only then you're able to understand if you are aware of the different personalities of the people. Then after understand the uniqueness, the differences, the strengths and weaknesses, what they can do and what they cannot do, then you start to accept and respect the dignity of every person. That is very important. By then, so you see that even if they are weak in some points, even if they cannot perform other tasks, but there must be strength, right? So then there you start to appreciate and value what they can do, what they can deliver. All right, so valuing difference as a competitive edge is very important. So as what Desiderata says, do not compare yourself with others. You may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. All right, so if you have reached that stage in the learning roadmap, then you have achieved inclusive behavior. Okay? The third item in the schema is the marketplace. So I considered two perspectives. So one is micro perspective, wherein you consider units or departments in a respective office, for example. But we have also a macro perspective where there is collaboration with the different agencies. Like in the examples I have here, for example, so we have the Civil Service Commission collaborating with the Department of Education or vice versa. And then there are some programs and projects that they collaborate with the DOST or the Commission on Higher Education. I did not include it there, but it's very important also with TESDA, right? And then private agencies or non-government organizations like the Japan International Cooperation Agency, Australian Aid, for example, and we have here American Field Service intercultural program. So in many cases, these agencies would collaborate in certain programs and projects. And it's very important that there is collaboration and inclusion both in the office itself and in other offices. So what are the stages in collaboration? So number one is there should be a connection, right? In other words, as a leading agency, for example, your job is to connect with the different agencies. Like in the case of IATF, for example, it connects with the DPWH, the local government unit, the military officials, and so on and so forth. So when there is a connection already of all these agencies, then there should be cooperation. So every agency has a specific role to play, just like in the IATF, for example. So whoever does that activity, and then there should be proper coordination of all the agencies involved. All right. So like, for example, if there are protocols to be delivered, so they should be coordinating, like the health workers should coordinate with the military officials, and so on and so forth. And then the highest stage for that is the collaboration itself, right? Very important that there should be collaboration of all the agencies involved. Why collaborate? So when you look at the stones, for example, that is a perfect example of collaboration. So there is a base, which may be the leading agency. There's another stone there, a smaller agency, but it is equally important. And there is another bigger stone. Maybe it's a main agency also co-leading in the project. And on top of that are smaller stones, and none of them is falling because they are collaborating well. So they are collaborating because there is a shared concern. So they share concern, like what I mentioned earlier about IATF. So there is a shared concern of everyone, every agency, and when they do that, there is a pool of power because one cannot do the task alone. So there should be in collaboration of many agencies to pool the power of each agency, and then it add the diversity. All right, so when everyone is putting all the talents together, so it adds diversity, then it overcomes the gridlock. So you don't get stuck because there is a solution that may be proposed of another agency. All right, so that's why it's a combination of everyone. So in the absence of one, then it will not function as it is, just like in the IATF. So there is an increased ability to handle complex issues. So yeah, this is really a perfect example in the use of the IATF model, no? Because by doing so, the issues, the concerns are being resolved because of collaboration. So what are the sector trends that we look into in collaboration and inclusion. So number one is demographic shifts redefine participation. So we have to look into the demographic shifts of every agency. And then another one is the technological advances abound. So what are these technological advances? And we make use of all these technological advances. The networks enable work to be organized in new ways. So yeah, if there is really networks of the different offices, then things can really be done. So interest in civic engagement and volunteerism is rising. This is really very true. This is very popular in other countries. Why is it so? Because this is already embedded in the curriculum, even in the basic education in other parts of the world. And when they finish senior high, for example, they are made to choose between pursuing college or going on an immersion. Like the example of American Field Service, all right, so it serves as an avenue to immerse the students all over the world. Okay, so they have certain programs, short or long-term program, because of civic engagement and volunteerism. So I am happy that the Philippines is also starting to look into this, no, on civic engagement and volunteerism. But really, in other countries, it is a must, especially for boys. So either they go to military or they go to immersion in communities or other countries, no, in the world. And then sector boundaries are blurring. So we break the walls of the sectors and we see how each sector of the government can complement the function of other offices. So by that, we create a new social sector. So it's really a milieu of the sector trends. Now, when all these are collaborating and we make use of the strengths of every office and put them all together, that's really very, very important. All right. So before we move on, let's have a short discussion. I'd like to see your answers in the chat box if you have any answers. So consider one aspect of a relationship in which your organization is or would like to be involved in. So what is your value add to the relationship? What have you learned that you'd like to share? All right, so I'd like to see your responses in the chat box. So what techniques did you use to maximize the relationship? Let us see. And what would you do differently if you had to do it again? So there is a sort of reflection of what happened, of the techniques that you use to improve the relationship, and if you were successful, will you use it again or you do it differently this time? All right, so I'd be happy to see your responses in the chat box. Thank you so much for your responses. And so we move on to the success factors of collaboration and inclusion. So number one is the environment that you're in. So what is really the purpose and trust of the environment? And then what are the resources available? So if you have identified what the purpose and trust is and what the resources are, then that could be a success factor. Another is an organizational commitment. So what are your clear objectives and shared expectations? So that is why when you start working, for example, in an office, you will be asked what your expectations are, and you should know what are the objectives or the vision, mission, and goals of the agency, because everything that we do in a certain office is geared towards achieving the vision, mission, and goals of the agency. And then what is the process and structure in your organizational commitment, and then the communication flow and process in the organization. Third item is the challenges. What are the challenges that you experience? So one may be driven by self-interests. Yeah, so maybe the person is there because solely of income and benefits, but not really the work to be done. Or maybe because the person is being pushed by parents or members of the family, but it's not really self-interest. All right. Another is the vague idea of what will happen, and then you don't know what's really is the purpose of being there in the first place. And then let's get started and see how and where it goes. It's like just a prognostication of what's going to happen, but you're not directed really of what your real purpose is. And then parties that don't know and or trust each other. So there is no level of awareness, of understanding, of acceptance, as what we discussed earlier. And then yes, individually based interest, or we call that a self-vested interest. So if that is your purpose, just a self-vested interest, then you're not going to achieve your goals, no, as a team. All right, so we have the roadmap for developing relationships. So there are 4 areas, PPDR. Okay, the start is prepare. So in the preparation stage, we need to identify the assets and capabilities you bring to alliance or to the agency or to the group. Then determine benefits from the group. Identify strategic goals and readiness. Delegate responsibilities to guide the team or the alliance, and then assess against current relationship. So what is the current relationship of the people? So after the preparation stage is like, pre. We proceed with the planning. So in the planning stage now, you start to map strategic relationships. All right, so now because you find out what the problems are, so in the planning now is you're trying to find out how you're going to patch up, to band-aid the problematic relationships, shall we say. And then research potential alliances for strategic fit or benefit. So everything that we do should be evidence-based. So it's very important that, there should be assessment which is evidence-based. And then design outreach approach for each potential alliance, so in the planning stage, because it's very important to look into the people first, no? So how the people function in a certain office, like know everyone in the office. So how is that? Then we move on to develop. So develop purpose and fit statements for each alliance, no? So that means you are now gearing towards uniting everyone and leading everyone, gearing towards that main goal altogether. So develop management process for each alliance. Okay, so how are we going to develop everyone so that you will reach a common goal? And then after that would be to renew. To renew would be based now on assessment, no? Prepare for alliance appraisal. So you have to assess how everything goes in terms of implementation, and if you see that there is a need to retain or improve or totally change, so you have to update your operating plan. And then review your portfolio of alliances. So very important that in the implementation stage, with the end of view of developing everyone and the entire workplace, then there is assessment as well, so that you can look back and try to see what else can be done. All right, so in the previous slide, we tackle about the items on prepare. So when we speak of assets and capabilities, we mean of the strong mission, visibility, access, communication and networks, expertise, programs, volunteers, opportunities, and leadership. So we have to examine every worker, leader, or member in the alliance, in the team, right? So when we determine the benefits, we look into the knowledge, the programs, the access, the revenues, the facilities, recognition, and the issue awareness, no? So that you'll be able to determine what benefits can you get from the people who are engaged in your alliance. Right, and then identification of strategic goals and readiness. So you look into the strategic goals, the good governance, the sound policies, effective management, quality programs, sound finances, and culture of volunteerism. All right, so all these aspects should be seen, no? Then in the delegation of responsibilities, you identify appropriate level, alignment of responsibilities, clarity, role, and scope of work. As I said, it's like in a SPED program, you have to make an individual education plan for every student so that you can create specific lesson plan fit for that student. So in here, you have to know the background of each employee, of each person, so that you would know what responsibilities you can delegate. And then the assessment stage, you have to characterize your current relationships against the different criteria above. Okay? In the planning stage, you have mapping strategic relationships. With that, you have philanthropic, transactional, and integrative. Okay, then under research potential, we have to look into the compatibility of mission and values, ability to serve your primary customers, brand strategy, a change of assets and capabilities, capacity to operationalize, and the risks that go through with it. And then the design outreach approach, we have to identify the contacts, plan initial discussion, decide on information and materials to be shared, and plan next steps and follow up. Yeah, it's really a good roadmap for developing your relationship in terms of planning stage. On develop the purpose and fit statements. We have to articulate the fit. Again, we talk about the mission, capabilities, objectives, and strategies. So they really serve as Bible in the execution of our programs and project, because everything should be anchored on the mission, vision, and goals. Then in the development of management process, we have to plan for the marketing and visibility, the relationship management, operationalizing, building trust and commitment, creating learning and volunteer opportunities, developing innovations, and appraising outcomes. So when we have done this, we make sure that we have developed our relationships. Then the last item there is renew. We have strategic fit, capabilities, objectives, contributions, management plan, significance to client, and unexpected consequences. So we have to take all this into consideration. And in terms of elements of relationship portfolio, so these are the items that we consider: the profile of the nonprofit, business, and government entity, the description of the relationship, enclosed memorandum of agreement and understanding, primary contact information, the key market stakeholders, the assets and structure, governing body and owners, key internal contact, relationship manager of partner, then the inclusion also of communication plan, the learning and volunteer opportunities, and then the frequency and outcome of assessments and partner performance. So all this will look into to develop the relationships, no? And it boils down to collaboration and inclusion. Now, looking into the assessing of your relationships. So where do we start in this scheme? Commitment to the partnership would lead to connection with purpose and people. And then if that is done, then there is clarity of purpose. And then congruency of mission, strategies, and values. And then the creation of value. Then continuing to communication among partners. And then with that, there is continued learning. And the cycle goes on and on. So that's how we assess our relationships, no? Grow your volunteer capacity. This is the culture of public service and leadership. So in fact, in the assessment of CESO or CSB, so these are being considered. There is participatory decision making. So it is not solely the leader or manager deciding, but there is vast participation of the rank and file, of other stakeholders of the agency. And there is also a shared leadership. So it is very important to empower the people involved, and you share the functions as a leader to others so that you will know whom to develop and who would replace you later on. All right. Then facilitate both internal and external community conversations. So yeah, so that you can grow in your volunteer capacity. This is also on training and learning opportunities. So very important that there is shared understanding of vision, outcomes, objectives, and roles. So before maybe the company would start the year, it should be done that everyone has an idea, has a shared understanding of what is the vision, outcomes, objectives, and the specific roles of every employee, every person. Then the opportunities to develop the competences. So everyone may be competent already, but it's very important there is continuous development in terms of professional development and professional sharing. This can be done formal education, diploma courses, trainings, or simple forum, no? Shared values, discipline, accountability, integrity, and trust. That's why every company also should have philosophy and values, and you share among the members of the community what your values are. For example, it's integrity, excellence, and service to the nation. So you share these values, no? All right, then open communication and clear messaging. So there should be no barriers. Everyone is given the opportunity to talk and speak up without being prejudiced by other people. Okay? Then in terms of internal operations on grow your volunteer capacity, so we look into the policies and planning. It's very important that there are policies or there are internal rules and regulations that we follow, and then there is planning, all right? Then networking, and we mean of a net that really works. So in other words, we connect with other agencies, and then we have effective communications. Very important. What are the different ways of communicating? So maybe creation of website and social networks, and then the building itself has areas for communications, or it can be through emails, it can be through text blasts, and so on and so forth. So relationship management is also very important. So there should be trainings, seminars and workshops that should be given to improve that. And then the learning environment is also very important. What is an ideal environment for you? Then multicultural and inclusive functions, no? And then very important also, as I mentioned earlier, is about assessment and appraisal. All right, so what are the benefits of collaboration? So we have a lot of boxes there, like 12 boxes for the many benefits that we can get from collaboration. Find out if you are already benefiting from them. So number one is organizations collaborate internally to compete externally. Yeah, that's very important. You collaborate internally, but you actually compete externally. Then decisions are faster, of higher quality, and customer driven. So if there is collaboration, decisions are made on the basis of principle rather than power of personality, or resulting in greater buy-in and impact. So, then cycle time is substantially reduced and non-value adding work eliminated. Yes. Then the productive capacity of the workforce doubles because everyone is involved. Then you have strategic alliance succeed while building trust and producing extraordinary results. Then return on investment increases dramatically because of collaboration. Span of control increases substantially. The workforce takes on full responsibility for the success of the enterprise. So that's why it's a combination of all, or collaboration of all the people, no? So conflict is reduced as work relationships open up and build trust. Wow, that's really nice. The fear is gone because change is seen as a positive opportunity. Wow. Then Center for Creative Leadership, How to Lead Collaborative Team, adapted from Edward M. Marshall, Transforming the Work, the Power of the Collaborative Workplace. So we give credit for the Center for Creative Leadership on many of these items that we are discussing. So these are the benefits of collaboration. The factors that separate great teams from good ones. Great teams are committed to the vision and to achieving extraordinary results. On great teams, individual goals are set aside for the benefit of the team. So you have to forget yourself, okay? You have to forget yourself. They share accountability for the results. When teams have an unbelievably high bar they're trying to reach as a team, the barriers between individuals seem to fall and they act more as business owners as opposed to functional leaders. So the communication is transparent. Do we communicate frequently and informally? Do we have access to the information we need to do our jobs more effectively? At this time, communication is easier because of the social networks, the group chats, a lot of group chats. Maybe you are being disturbed every now and then because of your group chats. They resolve conflict constructively and have clarity on decision-making roles. They have mutual respect for each other and strong camaraderie. Central to having a strong team is building a climate of trusts. All right? Then, yeah, our source here is Lindsay Levine, 5 factors that separate great teams from good ones. No? All right, so what are you doing? Any of this? Okay. So you contemplate on that. Okay, moving on. Building a psychologically safe workplace. So are you doing this? Psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistake. Was there an instance in the workplace that you felt being punished or humiliated because you spoke up, or you share your ideas, or you ask a question. All right? If you have uncertainty and interdependence, it's absolutely vital you have psychological safety. Okay, very important to have psychological safety. Then, building a psychologically safe workplace include also separate research studies by Google, and Amy Edmondson of Harvard Business School came to the same conclusion that the teams which made more mistakes were actually more successful. Because if you make mistake, you rectify it. If you are not committing mistake, you're perfect. But is there anyone who does not commit mistake? Creating an environment in which people feel comfortable to take risks is key to fostering innovative workplaces. So take note of that. If you allow people to commit mistakes, then you are creating innovative workplace. If you scold them for a mistake done because you are perfectionist, then you curtail their being innovative. So what are the steps to foster psychological safety in your workplace? Lead by example. So by being a leader, you have to set examples to the people. So by doing so, you ask for upward feedback. Acknowledge your mistakes. So if you commit mistake, you accept that you commit mistake. Make an effort to take on opinions that differ from your own. Sometimes it's very hard, right? Because you feel that you are always correct. Be approachable and encourage reports to ask questions. So, which of this are you doing? Then number 2 is encourage active listening. So leave phones at the door during meetings. Show understanding by repeating what was said. Encourage people to share more by responding and asking questions. If certain individuals rarely speak, actively ask them for their opinions. So really call the attention of that person who doesn't want to speak. I know he or she has an idea. Once you call that person, I'm pretty sure that he or she is going to respond. Number 3 is create a safe environment. By doing so, don't allow people to interrupt each other when it is not needed. All ideas should be accepted equally and no judgment. Never place blame on people. In fact, the leader should take the blame of everything. Encourage out of the box and off the wall suggestions. So when it's something new, novel, be sure to accept that because that is something which is out of the box. Develop an open mindset. Help your team become comfortable receiving feedback from each other because as a manager, as a leader, if they are comfortable that you receive feedback well, then that would be cascaded also to others. No? Then teach them how to first listen, analyze, and then respond to input from others. So do not react immediately, but learn to listen and analyze. Then encourage your team to see feedback as a way to strengthen their ideas. Maybe it's good if they realize that from their own. All right. We are now nearing towards the last slide. So, improving communication on teams. MIT's Human Dynamics Laboratory found patterns of communication to be the most important predictor of a team's success. Successful teams share several defining characteristics. And what are these? Everyone in the team talks and listens in roughly equal measure, keeping contributions short and sweet. That is one. Next is members face one another, and their conversations and gestures are energetic. So, am I doing that? Members connect directly with one another, not just with the team leader. Sometimes it's really very important also to work with team members because they also have creative ideas, no? Then members carry on back channel or side conversations within the team. And then members periodically break, go exploring outside the team, and bring information back. So it's not only information coming from the team, but you can also bring in new information because you've learned that from the outside. All right. So I guess that wraps up my presentation, and I'd like to show the references of my presentation. And I'd like to close my presentation with this quotation. A choir is made up of many voices, including yours and mine. If one by one all go silent, then all that will be left are the soloists. Right? Don't let a loud few determine the nature of the sound. It makes for poor harmony and diminishes the song. That's according to Vera Nazarian from the Perpetual Calendar of Inspiration. So it's very important that in collaboration and inclusion, we work and function like a choir or like an orchestra. Don't be a soloist. Thank you so much and have a pleasant day, everyone.